All right, ladies, are we ready to start on our decreases and our increases? Technically, I'm on row 9 of my pattern, but I want to actually show you row 5 MC. So follow along. After you've done your 2.5 inches and you've gotten up to through round 4 CC, now you want to start, you'll be on round 5 MC. Prior to round 5, there were no increases or decreases. You simply had to bark or burp, around and around and around. Okay, for the 2.5 inches, then for row 1 MC, row 1 CC, row 2, and all even rounds, and row 2 all even rounds on the CCs, and then you did round 3 and round 4, and now you would be on round 5. Okay. So just follow the pattern up to there, and up to round 5, it was all the same thing as this right here. It was just this. Bark or burp, bark or burp. Okay, this is my round 5 down here, and I'm going to repeat that up here just to show you come what may with my project. But here we go. Round 5 MC. The instructions say with the yarn in back is where you start. You know that's true because your working main color is going to be in the back. Okay, so make sure it's in the back, and then it says bark, yarn forward, slip 1, yarn over. Okay, so bark, yarn forward, slip 1, yarn over, and that's the next stitch is an increased stitch. It's bark, yarn over, bark. BRK, YO, BRK. We're reading row 5 MC. BRK, YO, BRK. Bark, yarn over, bark. That is worked into one single stitch. It's worked into this next bark stitch. Bark, yarn over, bark. Very simple. You just increased 2 stitches because you did a bark, a yarn over, and a bark into that one single brioche stitch below. So naturally our next stitch is going to be a yarn over, slip 1, or I'm sorry, yarn forward, slip 1, yarn over, and the stitches in the back. Okay, so the next stitch is a brioche left slip decrease. BrL, BrLsl, DEC. Basically that is brioche left leaning, brioche left slip decrease. Okay, if you look at your instructional sheet, the way that goes, I'm going to turn mine over while I'm doing it, is it's a two stitch decrease that slants left. It involves the next 3 stitches. This is 1 stitch, so you don't count that yarn over, right? That's 1, that's 2, that's 3. So it's going to involve this brioche stitch, is going to involve this slip stitch, it's going to involve this brioche stitch. 1, 2, 3 stitches. This is again the brioche left leaning slip decrease. It's a 2-stitch decrease, left leaning. Okay, so the instructions say to slip the first stitch knitwise with its yarn over. So you go ahead and you just slip that knitwise with its yarn over. And then it says to knit the next stitch. So we're going to do that. I'm going to knit the next stitch. And then it says pass the following, knit the, oh, I'm sorry, let me get to the right thing here. Oh, I am so sorry. Let me back that out. And I'm going to start this again. Ignore everything I just said. Here we go. I did this when I was making the project to begin with. Okay. It says So the BrL slip decrease, the left leaning decrease, just follow the instructions there. It says to slip the first stitch knitwise with its yarn over, bark the next two stitches together, and pass a slip stitch over with the yarn over. So it says to slip this one, right? And then it says to bark these two together. So now we're doing this one and this one with the yarn over. We're knitting them together. See that? And then it says to slip this one that we passed and a yarn over right over this one. We decrease 2, and you can see that this leans to the left. Okay? All right. Now, presume we'll just keep going. I'll keep doing row 5. Okay, so that's our decrease. That's left leaning. Generally, when there's a left leaning decrease, there's going to be a right leaning decrease somewhere along the line. But our instructions say to bark 1, yarn forward, slip 1 yarn over, bark, do our bark increase right here, and then it says the yarn over, slip 1 here, and then it has our left leaning decrease, which we just did. Okay, next it says to yarn forward, slip, bark, yarn forward, slip, and then it's going to have the right leaning. So we have the yarn over, the bark, and a yarn over before our next decrease. Okay, so that's going to be yarn over on this one, that's going to be the bark on this one, and it's going to be a yarn over on this one. So yarn over, bark, yarn over. I'm going to call this video for 5MC on the channel, and then I'll probably do 9 separately because it involves different decreases, and to keep the videos a little shorter and uploadable. Okay, so we just did that. Now it says to brioche right, slip, and decrease. So that's going to be again a 2-stitch decrease, and if you look at your instructions for the decreases, it says that on this one here, it's also, just like the last one, going to involve 3 stitches. This is 1 stitch because the yarn over doesn't count as a stitch. So 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 3 stitches. This is our brioche right decrease. Okay, so involving 3 stitches, we're going to knit the next stitch. We're going to slip the first stitch knitwise with its yarn over, knit the next stitch, and then pass a slip stitch over. Okay, so let's follow that instruction. It says to slip this knitwise with its yarn over, knit the next stitch, and then it says to pass the slip stitch over. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this and pass it over. That's the one we slipped before. We're going to pass it over, and then we're going to actually take this worked stitch that we did, and we're going to slip it right back to the left needle. Okay, got that so far? So place the stitch that we just worked on the left hand needle, and then just pass the following stitch with its yarn over right over that worked stitch. This is our second decrease. Okay, and you're going to see how the blue, the main color, ends up staying on top. It's left leaning, and there it is. Okay, we decreased 2 stitches, but we do have to slip this back to the right needle. Okay, and there it is. See how I brought it together? 2 decreases. Okay, so that's the right leaning decrease. The BR slip 1, actually it's BRR slip decrease. Okay, and then we just go back to our instructions and we continue on. once you get these decreases, they are no problem. They're going to be easy. It's not going to be an issue. This is a little adventurous for a beginner knitter, but it's certainly doable. And I know you can do it. Let me find my place in my pattern. So I just did the right leaning decrease. The rest of the repeat of the 18 stitches is to yarn over, and then it has that bark yarn over bark again, which is an increase, and then it says to yarn over bark, yarn over, and repeat to the end. So we have one more increase stitch to make up for the 2 that we just decreased, okay, so that we still have 18 stitches between our markers. So we're going to yarn forward, slip 1, and then it says to do the increase stitch, which is bark, all into the same stitch, yarn over, bark. Okay, that's how that's done. See how we have 3? These are going to be treated as 3 individual stitches on the next round because we just increased there. Okay, even though they don't have our yarn over on some of them, in the next round when it says bark, that's what you're going to do. Treat it just basically like a knit. Okay, so bark, yarn over, bark. That's our increase. Very simple, right? Bark, yarn over, bark. Okay, so to close up this repeat, we have 2 stitches left, and 3 stitches, I'm sorry. We have 3 stitches left. This one, and this one. Guess what? It's just going to be yarn over, bark, yarn over. So yarn forward, slip 1, yarn over, bark, yarn forward, slip 1, yarn over, and you're ready for the next repeat, which is the same thing you just did. See how we made our little crowns in there? Now keep in mind that my pattern below isn't correct because I just went out of order. I'm doing row 5 when I should be doing row 9. However, it works. So with the yarn, so let's do that repeat again. So it's with the yarn and back, bark 1. This is row 5 MC. Bark, yarn forward, slip 1, yarn over. Now it's an increase, bark, yarn over, bark into the same stitch, bark, yarn over, bark, slip that stitch off, there it is, that's our increase. Okay, now it's yarn over and then the left leaning decrease. So 1 yarn over, slip, and now we're going to do that left leaning decrease. Remember, it's worked over 3 stitches, and the instructions, I'm going to go back to them so that I won't confuse it again. Say to slip the first stitch, knit, so we're working on these 3 stitches. We have a brioche stitch, a unwrapped stitch, and a brioche stitch, right? So we're going to slip the first one as if to knit. We're going to bark or knit the next 2 stitches together. Remember that the brioche stitch counts as 1 and this is number 2. So knit the next 2 together. There it is. And then it says to slip this one over, and you're done. When you knit those 2 together over here, you decreased 1. When you slip this one over, you decreased 2. That's 2 stitches decreased. Okay, so that was our left leaning decrease. Row 5 MC, we're still working, and then it says yarn over, bark, yarn over. Remember that when I say yarn over, I'm talking about bringing the yarn forward, slipping one, bringing it back, okay? Whatever the method is for slipping that stitch with it and making a yarn over, whether it's knitting or purling, that's what I'm talking about. Bark one, wrap one, okay? Now we're ready for our right leaning decrease, okay? So let's read it from the instructions again for the right leaning decrease. After a while, you won't even have to think about this. It's again two stitch decrease worked over the next 3 stitches. It starts with a bark, a slipped, and a bark, okay, or a brioche, an unwrapped and a brioche, or wrapped, unwrapped brioche, however you want to think about it. Okay, you've got 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 3 stitches, okay? So let's look at the right leaning decrease again. It's slip the first stitch knitwise with the yarn over, knit the next stitch and pass the slip stitch over. You have to then move it to left hand needle, and then you have to pass the one that's after it over the first one. So let's do that. Let's say slip this one knitwise, knit the next one, pass this one, pass the first, the one to the right over, the knit one. Take that whole processed stitch and put it on the left hand needle, and then pass the brioche stitch to the left, right over that stitch, and put the whole processed shabam onto your right needle. Done. That's it. It's not hard. A little bit complex maybe, but not hard. Okay? And then after the right leaning decrease, there's a yarn over, an increase. So there's a yarn over and an increase. Yarn over, slip, yarn to the back, and now it's an increase. Remember our increase? Bark, yarn over, bark, bark, yarn over, bark. Okay? This one's obviously going to be slipped because it's not wrapped, so you need to wrap it. And we're back at I'm sorry, let me get there. Yarn over, bark. Yep. So now we should be ending with a bark and a yarn over. Bark. Wrap. Yarn over. Okay. We're now on the next repeat. So let's just show you that. See how we've been pulling those together? Again, it's not in pattern because I'm on the wrong row here, but by forming them, you can see how this leans left, you can see how this leans right, and you can see our increases there. Okay? Let's see if I can do this one continental. English. Alrighty. Row 5 with yarn in back. Here we go again. Bark. Oh, I'm sorry, my yarn wasn't in back. The yarn in back. Bark. Yarn over. So yarn forward. Slip one, yarn over to the back. Here's our increase. Bark, yarn over, bark, bark, yarn over, bark. That's our increase. all into the same stitch. See it? Okay. Now we have a yarn over and a left leaning. We have to wrap our next stitch. So yarn forward, slip one, yarn to the back, and now we have the left leaning. Slip the first stitch as if to knit, knit the next two together, pass the slip stitch over. See it? Left leaning decrease. Okay? And then it's going to be yarn forward, yarn forward, slip one, bark. Let me double check that. Yep, bark, yarn over. So bark, yarn forward, slip one, yarn over, and now we have a right leaning decrease. That's our next stitch. Remember, on row 5C, I'm doing just the 18 stitches. Slip one as if to knit, knit one. Now I'm remembering it. Knit one, pass a slipped brioche stitch with its yarn over our knit one stitch there, put it back on this needle, take this one to the left of it, lift it up and over, and put it back on the right hand needle. Okay, that was in the English style. See it there? Okay, and then it says after the right leaning decrease we have a yarn over and an increase. So yarn forward, slip, yarn over into the back, and now it's an increase. All into the same stitch. Bark, yarn over, bark, bark, yarn over, and bark. So it all went in the same stitch. Okay, there it is. That's our increase. After our increase, the rest of the instructions are just the yarn, the wrap, the bark, the wrap. Okay, we have 3 stitches left. 1, 2, 3. Wrap, bark, wrap. Okay, so yarn forward, slip one, yarn goes to the back, and knit one, bark, yarn forward, slip one, yarn to the back. Get ready to bark the next stitch, okay, or end the round. Alrighty, we are on our last round of this stitch, of this row, 5MC. So I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do it English style. So we've done 2 in continental and 2 in English. Okay. All right. So with yarn and back, bark, yarn over, or back, wrap, increase. Bark, wrap, increase. Bark, wrap, yarn forward, slip one, yarn to the back, and now increase, which is bark, yarn over, bark, bark, yarn over, oops, yarn over, Remember, on the next round, these are 3 separate stitches here. Okay. Okay, and then that was our increase. So now we need to yarn over, or we need to wrap, bark, wrap, bark, wrap. Let's see. No, let me read that again. Now we just need 1 yarn over, and then a left leaning decrease. Left leaning decrease. If you recall, I'm going to do it from memory myself now. I'm going to slip this as if to knit. I'm going to knit the next 2 together. Remember, my yarn's in the front because of this slipped one here. But when I go to knit those together, it's going to create my yarn over. Okay. Knit 2 together, pass this brioche stitch up and over. 2 stitches have been decreased, and it is now left leaning. Okay, and then after the brioche the left leaning decrease, we have a yarn over, a bark, or a wrap, a bark, and a wrap. So here's our wrap, yarn forward, slip, yarn over, brick, or bark, I'm sorry, bark, yarn forward, slip 1, yarn to the back, right leaning decrease is our next stitch. Okay, to remember the right leaning stitch, we want to slip the first one as if to knit. We want to knit 1. Whoops, I started going continental. We want to knit 1. And then we want to pass the slipped brioche stitch right here over. We want to take that whole processed stitch and put it on our left needle. And then we want to lift the stitch to its left, up and over it, and involved 3 stitches, decrease them down to the point of having 1, put it back on your right needle, tighten it up, and there it is. And then you end with yarn over, increase, so wrap and increase. Here's a wrap, yarn forward, slip, bring it to the back, and now it's an increase. So bark, yarn over, bark, all into the same stitch. There they are, 3 into the 1, and then you have 3 stitches left at the end, and it is a wrap, a bark, and a wrap. Let's see if our instructions say that. Wrap, bark, wrap. Yes. So yarn forward, slip 1, yarn to the back, bark, yarn forward, slip 1, yarn over to the back. Because this is the end of the round, when you wrap that, bring it all the way around to the front. When you come to your next main color row, you will move it to the back. Okay, and then slip 1. Row 5MC, the next round, is all just bark and bark. I'm going to start it, but I'm not going to go through the whole round. Okay, I'm going to start it so that you know how to deal with these increases right here. So we'll just do the first repeat of row 5CC. We have our contrast color, it's to the front, and I'll do this throwing for you. Okay, So if row 5cc says with the yarn in the front, which we have here, slip one yarn over forward, and then burp one, and repeat that around. So it's slip and burp all the way around, right? So our yarn's forward, we slip one, yarn over, and just bring it back to the front, and then we burp. Okay, remember the burp is the two together, just like the bark, right? But now we've got our increase from the row before, so it's still the same thing. It's still, we want to wrap and burp, wrap and burp, wrap and burp. So our yarn's forward, we slip our next one, we wrap it, just like yarn over and bring it to the forward. And then when it says burp, it just means take the next stitch and purl it, okay? There's no wrap for you there with the purled below. You just simply purl it. And then you wrap the next one. So yarn is forward, slip it, wrap it around, and bring it forward. And then burp, right? So let's work across that increase, this little bit, okay? So now it's very plain, everything's as you would expect it until you get to your next increase from the row below. Okay, so here's an unprocessed stitch from the row below. We're going to slip it, we're going to wrap it, and we're going to burp. Slip it, wrap it, burp. Slip it, wrap it, and burp. Okay, and here we have another increased stitch, so let's go over that again. Slip, burp, slip, burp, wrap, right? So slip it, wrap it, burp is just that middle stitch, and then wrap, burp, wrap, right? Burp, right? Okay, slip, end with slip, wrap, slip and wrap, and burp, and that is